Hey friends, welcome back to the Origami Wylder tutorial, and today we are going to be doing the collapse. So this is arguably the fun part, and it's not too difficult, so we're just going to kind of jump right in. Now, if you haven't done part 1 yet, and you don't have your pre-crease, and you don't have your grid, then go back and finish that first part of the tutorial. But if you've got everything and it looks something like this, we are ready to go. So yeah, let's just hop right in. All right. So one thing that's nice with this design is there's no level shifters, right? So no crazy weird transitions, which generally means we can just start collapsing this model as a stick and then go outwards from there or from the center, whatever you want. It'll be really easy. So I am orientated where the head is above, legs are below, and the outward grid line is mountain. So I'm going to mountain valley it all the way into a vertical stick where, again, it's like lengthwise. So go ahead, do that. This should be pretty easy. You're just going along the grid. Shouldn't have to explain that, and we'll be right back. Right, so we have folded it relatively into a stick, right? And the main thing I want you to find is the very center. So now all these pleats are evenly distributed. And, you know, how to find a center is actually, this is upside down. So this is the head, and we'll have this one diamond at the top. And if you look at our crease pattern here, you can see that that's at the top. So actually that's not the center, right? So that's like just a little bit off. So let's turn a few, and now we can look for the legs down below, because in the legs we'll have the point where these two areas meet up. Now, we didn't pre-crease these diamonds. If you did, you'll have them, but we'll have, you know, the even spacing between these boxes or these X's. So I am just going to scout out for that, which it looks like somewhere over here. This is the center of an X. And spread this out a little bit and just look. Here is the right side edge going down. There's the left side, so that means we're pretty close to the center. It's one of these right here. Okay, so now I've found the center pleat, just like this, and I'll refold. All right, so now I have found the center of my pleats. You can even see if I squish it together, they're all even. Now, if you want, because we're going to be working on the bottom first, you can take like a clip and just clip the top, just so it stays in place. You don't really have to. You'll have to be taking it on and off. But if you find your paper to be unruly, you can go do that. But now what we're going to do is start on the bottom left side. I think that's just going to be the easiest thing to start with. Right, so this leg and just following up these creases and going down to here. We are actually not going to fold this section yet. And what you can even do before we fold that is basically we're going to treat this section as like all there is. So this is actually going to make a mountain fold point. So if we very quickly find where that is, it is right here. We can actually fold a mountain fold up. And if you want the grid count, this is going to be 6 grid units up from the bottom. You just have a mountain fold like this ready. And then if you go up another 3, you can kind of have a valley. This valley won't necessarily be there, but we can prep it like this. And basically by doing this, when we collapse, everything will kind of lay into place, and the other side, the layers will stay together while we collapse. So let's start with this, and we'll collapse the left side. Okay, so to continue, we are going to be folding from the corner, and it's going to be like an Elias stretch up to this point. So we kind of have to unfold and start doing mountain valleys upwards. So let me show you. Unfold. Here we have the edge grid line, and we want to start making it a mountain up until we hit the ridge line over here. So this is where my pre-crease is, right? That's the one over here. And then we're just going to go up and follow the pre-creases until we get all of them up until this structure. And so, right, once I do a few even if you have never done this before, which you should have done this before, you know, it should be pretty easy. Okay, right? So we follow our pre-creases up. Go like this, and we just keep following upwards. And I'm following from the other side with those pre-creases. And even if you can't see it on mine, you should be able to see it on yours. And we're just going to track upwards. It's like this, pretty easy. And now we're starting to hit some of the other folds. So we're getting up to here, and this is where that mountain fold is going to really help us, right? Because we can crease, and it's going, in order to do the one that goes back this direction, it's going to want to bend this mountain fold. As we go up here, we're going to hit this area, and this just mountain folds down. So like here, right, just kind of do the rest of it, and as it translates back this direction, it just goes this way, like that, like this. And we're going to close it back up. Now we're on these like 1 unit ones. It's going to come across this way, but it's easier if we just finish off this side over here. And that's where this mountain fold is helping us a lot, because it lets us fold back down quite easily over here. And it will let us finish off this set of creases here. Just like that. And that is one side done. All right, we're back, and for the other side, and I just looked back on the footage, and I just want to quickly apologize. I had these scratches on my hand. I injured it rock climbing. It looks way worse than it is. But if you're going to be watching me for, you know, a couple hours, it looks really nasty on camera. So I'm just going to have these 2 band-aids. Looks a little weird, but I think it's better than having the remnants. But okay, we're going to continue. Hopefully the, you know, first little bit was not too bad. But we're basically going to do the exact same thing on the other side. So I'm going to open up. And now that we have one side already collapsed, just mirroring it is always easier, and the center structure is already kind of aligned for us. So we're going to have a pretty easy time collapsing this, right? So it's exact same thing, but mirrored. I found my crease line over here. It's going to go up like this. And go this way. Just keep going up until we hit our 2 unit flap here. And let me change the crease pattern just so we can see this side. Like this. It's going to go up. This one's going to go outwards this direction towards that mountain fold. Which so happens to be right there. And we're almost done. We're getting to the section with the 1 unit flaps. Okay. And the last little bit over here. All right, perfect. So, oh, I messed this side up a little bit. It goes a little deeper here. Okay. This is why it's good to check. Okay, there we go. I think I actually have to fix it on the other side too. So on yours, hopefully the pre-creasing is correct. I think I just had some off lines, or I was just folding without really checking. But it should be like this. Oh, this side's good. I think I did something weird on the other side. Ah, I did. Okay. 2, 3. 2. Two, 3. 2, 3. All right, I just had missed a little bit of a line in my collapse. I think yours should be all good. Trust your crease pattern, not what you see me doing here. Okay, so just like that. I was thinking too hard. All right, so we have our 1 unit flaps here. We have the 3 unit flaps up here. The other side was fine. Okay, so now if we just take a quick look at the flaps we have our legs down here. We got these 2 flaps like this, and we have our flaps over here. Okay, so now we are done with the bottom. We're going to start doing the center. We're not going to unfold these middle flaps yet until we have more done, and it'll be easier from there. Okay, we are back. I've dropped the exposure a little bit. I think this will be easier to see now that we've got some more stuff collapsed. And we're going to start with the left side in this area. Now, what's a little bit confusing is because we have this chibi fold, it's going to act a little bit differently. We're kind of going to do something similar where we're going to ignore whatever is in the middle and just treat this flap as a 3 unit flap. That way we can have this mountain fold here. And then the rest of it should be kind of fine over at the top. But basically we have a mountain fold here, a valley, mountain, valley, mountain. And with that, we'll be able to collapse everything really nicely. So first, let me show you where those are in reference to what we currently have here. So at this hinge, right, this is the top of our first box, which is over here. So all we got to do is count up 3. 1, 2, 3. This is going to be a mountain fold through everything like this. And then I'm going to count 3, 5. So let's count 3, 5. This will be a mountain over here. And then it's just 1 unit. So mountain, valley, like this. And then 2 more, and there's going to be another mountain like that. And then if we want after another 2, we can also add a valley. So I'm going to shift this up. So this is the amount of space essentially our torso is going to be taking up, including that extra flap there. So we kind of want to have this in memory as we start opening and collapsing. It'll be a little bit easier. And just by doing that, it should be good enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to find this area and start from here and then go down and around. So I'm going to open up my layers carefully. It's not too far from the center, so I should be able to find it pretty easily over here. All right, so I can already start to see the start of it over here. So I just need to go probably 1 more layer and I'll see it. There we go. So it's going to be right here, right where we had that first mountain fold that we set. And how I like to start this is in this scenario, this grid line will be a mountain, I believe. Like this. Right? And then along my pre-crease lines over here, it's going to be valleys. And then I'm going to start going down. So down this way. And in this portion are grid lines that are going horizontal. They might have to flip orientations a little bit, but within paper, it's not too hard. You mainly just want to trust your pre-crease lines like this, right? So now I've collapsed this bottom section, which is basically just this area. And then we can keep going. So this part is not right. I need to go back down, right? It's only up to down to. So actually this can keep going up to down to here. I'm going to flip that grid line just to make it a little easier, because now this is where our 1 unit flap is. All right, so I can start to crease that. Push this in. And now the rest of this area is going to kind of get a little wonky until we get to the top. So I'm actually going to keep folding along this unit. And we did a little bit at the bottom, but we're just going to leave it be for now. Like, that's kind of good enough being opened up. And I'm just going to find the rest of my pre-creases. So let's keep going up this way. I have to go up, I think, 5 in total. So 3, 5. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is right there. Five. And then with that, we can kind of see it starting to connect to the other side. So if I flip this grid here and I count 4 from this corner here, 2, 4, I can see my other pre-creases. Right. Like that. And because these are so long through the whole model, let's just collapse these down too. I can see my other pre-creases here. And they start to cascade back down, so we can start to close a little bit more of it just to let it be a bit more manageable. Right? Okay, now we can keep going. It goes up for this 1 unit flap here. Which we already did with the mountain fold, like that. Right, and this is why doing this to the very center helps us keep track where all our creases are a lot easier. Now we have, it goes back up, how much, 2? So from here, 2. And I see the pre-crease line right there. One more, we're at the top here. And now we can pinch off the center like this. And from here, we're now just mainly working on, you know, the outer side pre-creases. So we can start to resolve everything on the left side. So it's going to start coming down. This one comes down 4. I'm looking at this, 2, 4. So that's 2, 4 over here. We found our pre-creases, and then this one makes a 1 unit flap on the edge like this. And then meets back up with what we kind of already have collapsed. Right. And then basically what's been making this weird the whole time is because there is at the bottom here, we've got this 2 unit thing over here, and this kind of acts as a meander that pushes up into this top area. So without this top area collapsed, we wouldn't really be able to fold this. So let's take a look back at the bottom, and the reason we weren't quite able to fold it is because it's where is it? Right here. It relies on all the horizontal grid units being collapsed together in order to push into oh, it's right here, in order to push into itself, basically. But now that it's mostly all collapsed, right, I can now squeeze all this together. This is the top of where my mouse is pointing, right here. And now this can fully collapse. So we've got the top of that point, and then it points down with everything collapsed like this. And you'll see we have all our flaps that we folded. And it might take a little bit to fidget it all into place. You just want to make sure you have all of them. But we have the 2 unit flap at the top, which is here. We've got the 1 unit flap right next to it. Then it goes all the way down to our other point here, which is only 3 units from the other one. Then on the far side, we've got basically a long flap that has this 1 unit right here. And then it goes down a bit more, goes back, and then we have another 1 unit that's in line with the legs. And we have, again, this structure here, which is the main tricky part. And you can see how it's pushing all these horizontal grid lines up and into itself, basically. Right? So it folds like that. Right? And kind of terminates into itself. Just like that. So if I unfold it a little bit and I recollapse it, you can see how that collapsed. And I think sometimes that might trip people up. That might be easy to you, but you know, you kind of have to go up and around. And once that's good, then it can all kind of squeeze together. But it'd be really hard if you just had that separately. But now that we have that in place, I think if we flip the paper over and work on the other side, it's going to be a little bit easier because we have everything in line. But once again, I'll show you the process. I'm still going to start at this 3 unit one. And I unfolded the wrong thing a little bit just to get our bearings on where our creases should be. So first thing I'm going to do is find where that flap is, which it should be around here somewhere. Okay. Here is the bottom of it, and it goes up into here, right? So this is the first one that we have to really worry about. I think I unfolded too many layers on the edge, so let's use that and just kind of find where our next pre-crease is, which I think is here. So it goes up 2, down 1, 1. Yeah, so right here. And this is where the edge crease is starting. So like this. And I can see my, oh, I blocked it. I can see my pre-crease there. So I'm just kind of marking it like this. And then from the bottom, again, we have to reverse some of these grid lines a little bit. But I'm still just kind of keeping track of where I can see my pre-creases. Just like this. And then here, it starts to go back up And this is the point that I was talking about that now has to push all the way up. So we can just kind of forget about that for now and fix the top area, and then it'll all collapse together. So now from here, let's go up this way, and then we'll go up along the edge as well. Again, this section, from how I'm feeling it, a lot of it is just kind of reversing the grid and then following our pre-creases. Nothing too crazy, right? Here we've gotten to the tip of our edge flap. Now let's keep going along this side, which this has to go up quite a little bit until it hits, I think it's like 5 units until it hits here. This is our next pre-crease for that 1 unit flap. Just like this. Okay, so we can see I'm still just mainly getting the grid in the right angle and then finding where my pre-creases are. We've hit the 1 unit flap here. Which, again, because it's collapsed on the other side, makes it a little bit easier to press together. Same thing here. I can kind of half collapse it like this. All right, we got a little bit more to go up into this other 2 unit flap, which will be right here. Here, and then 2 units. It's right here. All right. Oh, this is the wrong grid line. That. There we go. One, two. I think I went a little too high. I did. Okay. So it's here, here, and this is the top. You stay in frame. Okay, so I've gotten all of my grids going the right direction, and now I found all my pre-crease lines. So the top collapses down. Next, we have this 1 unit flap, and then we also have the 1 unit flap from the other side, like this, and close those. And then we can keep going along our pre-creases, and now we can finally, towards the bottom, start collapsing this 2 unit flap that pushes into everything. And that's gonna be right here. And this time I didn't really work on the far side. I can do that really quickly. I just have to push this grid unit this way. Get this 1 unit flap out here to collapse like this. And then right over here where this looks like a mess is where our 2 unit flap lives. There it is. I pushed it and now found the pre-crease like this. And again, this is going to push through all of these grid lines upwards in order to lay flat, just like the opposite side. Now it very much nicely folds together. So because there's a lot going on, in order to like squeeze it all together, I kind of adjust some flaps. So we've got like the bottom torso over here. We have these 2 flaps, which are both, for now, 3 units up here and over here. And then we have this 1 unit pleat here, and this pleat here, like that. And that is essentially like the legs and the torso. All right, so now that we have the legs and the torso, what I'm going to do is get us started with these middle flaps. We're going to start with the lower one, which out of our flaps here is this lower 3-unit flap in the middle over here, and it's going to turn into 2 flaps. Now the edge over here, it's like a little weird. It's not going to like fully be nice when you collapse it, but it's easier to start with this one than to do this one, but they're very similar in how they're folded. So I'm going to zoom in here and we'll just pay attention to this area. Basically, we're going to be unfolding the layers and collapsing this section that I'm tracing with my mouse. And then once that's collapsed, it's going to be like 2 reverse folds that are facing inwards at each other in order for it to close back to something like this. Okay, so I am going to reach inside the layers and I can see where, right, our pre-creases, it has that ridge there. So I'm going to gently grab those and just pull, again, pull gently. If yours isn't pulling, then just open up the model and unfold it a little bit. I'm just doing this so I can like see the layers here. And I should be able to see my pre-creases that come this way and go around, and then same thing on the other side. And all I'm going to have to do is start collapsing on them. And it's easy to do the one that's faced towards the edge. So you can start that just to get your bearings, you know, just to get it started like this. Right? And now I have to do the inner side, which the paper is going to start to fight you a little bit because it's not going to want to fully close. So just kind of get it into its position like this. Right. So now I've started. You kind of just want to make sure the points are strong. It's not really going to lie flat yet, but really try to find where that pre-crease is over here. And it is a little stuck. Okay, there we go. Got my pre-crease. Got the corner nice. And then the rest of the creases kind of go this way. But as you can see, at this point, it's not going to really want to lay flat. And we even have some of the layers from the other side coming out. So we want to make sure those are tucked in. Don't want that to go. And as you can see right now, I'm holding it in this orientation where we're basically looking in between this area. And for now, that's what we're going to want because it's going to be the easiest way to collapse. And I'm going to show this left side. You're going to want to look very carefully at first, right? We have all the layers open like that. I am going to take a layer on each side so it can kind of press flat like a water bomb base, like this. And that way, if I push in with my finger underneath the crease here, it's going to make a mountain fold on the other side that goes towards the center. So I think showing you like this is going to be a little easier than just explaining it, right? You can see like that. And then you're going to do the same thing on the other side, like this. And basically you have to do this at the same time. And it's kind of like closing up a reverse fold with this mountain fold that forms from doing this. Like this. And like this. And you want to just try to get it as tight as possible. So like once you're able to really fold the flap like this, you can see it's really close to the center. And now I can kind of start to crease in at the very center here, which is what makes up these diamonds that are showing on the crease pattern like that. So that's one side. And then I'm just going to shimmy the other side to try to close it up too, as close as possible. Like this. Alrighty. Like that. And that's generally how it's going to collapse. Now you can see I do still have some extra layers like sticking out of the side from there, and that's natural. What I'm going to kind of do to fix it is reach underneath and actually pop open some of these layers at the bottom here. And you don't have to do this if you don't, or actually maybe you can do this, but this will just kind of help make those layers a little bit easier to collapse. And I'm kind of turning that reverse hold into its own flap. So it's going to be like a mini water bomb base that kind of pokes through. Right? And by doing this, I can more easily push the other layers from the inside out and get them to tuck. But ultimately, they're not going to fully want to cooperate. That's kind of okay, but just try to get it as best as you can, because in shaping we won't really see it, and also we still technically have to do the same thing on this flap above where these layers are jumping out of anyways. So yeah, it's kind of totally okay, but this just kind of helps a little bit in between there. You probably can't tell what I'm doing, but it's just like a little bit to get it just slightly cleaner like this. And you get this little point sticking out. But again, it doesn't really affect the whole look much if you don't have that. This is what it looks like from the underside. Right. And now we're going to have to do the same thing on this flap, except we have these like little chibi things. These are actually really easy to collapse. The main difficult thing will be doing this again and repeating it. All right, so it's going to be kind of similar. I am going to be looking where I can pull from inside these layers. There's a bit less layers to grab, so it's a little bit more obvious, but it comes out as this shape. So I think this is actually the only thing you can grab over here, like this. Right? It's like that. Okay, so now that we have that, we have to go very much inside of the model. I'm going to try not to bump the microphone while I do this, but I am reaching inside the model. And, right, we can start by kind of doing the same thing from the center. But again, we have that chibi fold. So instead of the creases going, you know, and meeting at a point, it's going to kind of intersect in the middle. And how that works, as you can see here, is there's like extra mountain folds that are made. So let me try to put it where it's a little easier to see. Okay, here we go. So I've also pulled out a little bit the layers of this and down here, which if I point to it on the crease pattern is this one. This one's a mountain fold. This one's a mountain fold. And that way it exposes this section. And for now, I believe all of these will be mountain fold to kind of collapse. So you can see if I make all of the mountain fold like that, it is starting to be able to collapse. And then I need to push from the inside the upper area just so we can see. I'm only going to do one side at a time just so it's a little bit more obvious what's going on. Okay, like this. Right. So we got like this little weird shape thing here. Now, in order to collapse the rest of it, I think what's going to happen is All right, so yeah, what's gonna happen is let's on the top end, right? It was pushed out. I'm gonna push it in, and it's gonna tuck underneath this section. So when it folds back down, we're left here, and I pushed back the other one too. So before it was like this, I'm just gonna push it back in, and now we have this shape, and it's basically like a tiny extra point here, and it's starting to convert this center line as a mountain, which is totally fine because remember that's what we had on the other side as well. It's just a little bit different in how we are approaching pushing it in as the reverse fold. So let me show you again on the other side. Maybe it'll be a little bit more smooth. These are definitely a little bit strange to collapse. So first thing I want to do is find this area, and I might have to or just pull out a few layers like this one and the top one to find it initially. And again, we're going to push these in later, but we just need to find that section. And I can see it over here. Right here. And that's that square. And I can start off by making them all mountains. Same thing on this side. Mountains. And then the center line will be mountain as well. And I might have to reach underneath to poke at it in order to get it there. There you go. All right, just like that. And actually by doing that, I naturally like pushed in this corner, but if your corner is still out, you're gonna push that in. And with those being mountain, it's kind of tuck underneath it like that. Same thing on this side. You push it in and it's going to tuck it underneath. So you have this little shape here, and mine's not very clean, but it should be like a little triangle point. And then from there, you just want to make sure you're starting to line up the other side and its creases like this. And once that is set, right, we have that same issue where we need to push these together. Now, this one is much more naturally forming the mountain fold in the center. So I can kind of be relying on that and pushing them into this, you know, V structure closer to the model. And as it gets like closer and closer, I can do the same thing where I'm kind of adjusting towards the center line here to push it. And then where it gets more messy is on this side, but we're going to deal with that in a second. All right, so I can start to close it like this from this side. Make sure I don't mess up anything in the center over here. Or recollapse cleanly. Okay, like that. Flip it around, and now we have to deal with this whole mess on the inside. And remember how I popped out that one layer over there? So I'm going to do the same thing. Is I'm going to reach inside of this and push a layer up like this. Use those mountain folds. And I think this will help me to collapse it a little bit more cleaner with all these layers going on. So we can start to pull it back. Kind of have this diamond, and I'm not really fully on the creases. I'm just kind of observing where they want to go. And then with the goal of pushing these edges more towards the edge, and then the centers more towards the center. Like this. You see how this edge is sticking out? So my goal is to get that in. And this gives me some room to push the layers around like that. And you just want to get it as close as you can. It's probably not going to be fully clean, but that's okay. As long as you can get the, like more of the edges and the top of this flap cleaner, you can kind of sacrifice the center. But if you do want to spend some extra time to try to get as clean as possible, by all means, go for it. But I think for now, that's as close as I'm going to get to this. Try to adjust this one a little bit more. All right, and then once you're, happy or fed up with it, you're going to lay it back down. I think for now, I'm just going to keep these together and fold it up like this. Kind of like that. And it's like not too bad. I like these areas is relatively clean. This area is relatively clean. It's just between the two of them, it's kind of crazy. And yeah, that's okay. All right. So that was pretty difficult. I think that's probably the most difficult thing in this design. It's just like a little bit weird how I fit these flaps in the middle like that. But overall, not too bad. If you're getting stuck and frustrated, all you really got to do is make sure you have 2 3-unit long points and then 2.5 long points like this, and you'll be set. The ones at the top, they're going to kind of hide underneath some of the armor. So like you don't have to worry too much about it. And then do you see how we have like this square here, which mine's not really fully square. If you look on the finished model, that's that square right there. And so what I recommend you do is at least try to push enough so you have like one clean square. There's going to be a few areas you can have these diamonds. Pretty much anywhere over here you see a diamond can turn into one. So at least one of them, try to have it clean. So I think over here, I'm going to try to make this top one a little bit cleaner. And I can make the top one a little bit cleaner by sacrificing everything behind it, basically. So let's try that out. And I'm just pinching, kind of creating new creases that will make it look more and more like the square. As possible. Right, so I've kind of drawn a bigger square out of this now. And then I can probably go underneath and poke in the top to make it a little bit more pointy. Or maybe I can just fidget with it a little bit until the top is a little bit pointier. I think my thin paper here is making it a little bit too wrinkly. But that's okay. Just kind of adjust it, and if we can't get it with the collapse, we'll make it nicer in shaping by just folding out some of the corners. But, we'll take that. I think that's the best we're going to get for now, and we'll just keep moving forward, and it'll be okay. All right, so now we're going to move on to the head area, and the head axis is not on the same line as where the torso is. So like our torso is coming up here, and then it has to shift over, I think just one, or basically like 2 grid units to the left over here to make it in line. Now we're going to be doing that transition underneath this 2 unit flap here. So this one right here, we can basically put the transition in this, but basically what I want us to do is on these upper layers, we're actually going to find where the center is. And let's see, if I flip to the left once, I think that's all we need, right? So the way I found that is you can see we have our pre-crease diamond, 1 unit diamond at the top. So that's all we need. And as I flip this layer over, right, you can see that it could want to swivel right here, but we actually want to wrap it over. This first one, we can actually wrap it over both. Let's wrap it over both. It might be a little easier to manage this way. Wrap it over both the 2 unit flap and the 1 unit flap. Right. And what's going to happen is it's now going to swivel down here. Doesn't have to be super clean. It's actually kind of hidden now behind these flaps here, which totally works. We can even fold that. The point of this flap here is actually mainly to do that axis shift. So we can kind of hide it like that and just leave this one folded up. But now we've successfully shifted the axis over to the top. And if you remember how we started collapsing is we added some mountain folds into this area. We're going to do the same thing, but going up through a lot of the head. The first one is going to be this area. This is a 2 unit flap. So from the hinge right here, we're going to count up 2, right? We're going to fold, mountain fold. We're going to count up 2 again, and that'll be where our valley fold is. So we have something like this. Next, this one's going to be a little bit weirder, but this starts to get where our Pythag is. In this scenario, we can just count up 2 and then 4. So 4, or we count up 4 or 3? I think we count up 4. Yeah, we count up 4. So 2, 4, and mountain fold here. Like this. So that's 4. And then from this, we actually only do 1 unit. So it's going to be 1 unit for a valley. And we are now doing this one here. Next, we have quite a few of these now. So it's going to be mountain, valley, mountain, valley. So mountain, valley, mountain, valley. And you'll see on our crease pattern, we actually have pre-creases running in an X over here. Between this X, which happens to be 2 units up, we're going to add a mountain. We're going to let it go down 2 units and then do a valley. And this section is actually a little bit mirrored for the helmet. Well, actually not a whole lot, but we're going to add 1 more mountain valley. And I think that's all we need. Technically over here where we have our 1 unit diamond, like right below the diamond, we also mountain fold. So that would be right here. So maybe we can do that, but this is kind of easy enough to handle. We don't necessarily need to do that. Okay, so in the end, the center area where our face is going to be stacked up like that. So as long as we have, you know, the gist of that done, now we can start collapsing. Because we have these Pythags, I'm going to actually collapse the left arm first. But just like the legs, we're going to be skipping something. So we're going to be skipping all these fingers and everything over here. So we're going to go down the arm, down this way. This is the handle. Then we're going to go up. This is the start of the hand. And then we're going to go down. So we're going to ignore everything above this point. This is like a 2 unit flap. And then we're going to start doing the Pythag over here.
We're going to skip all these diamonds on the left side and just treat this as another flap. Start with this 2-unit flap and complete our first Pythag over here. And that'll be like one big move, basically. At that point, we can refold it almost to being flat-ish. I think we might also be working on this area a little bit. I'm not too sure how much we actually want to do because these will level shift out. So we're going to try to ignore it where we can, but we might have to do a little bit, at least towards the edge, which this area should be easy. Yeah, I think over here, we're just going to skip these and go upwards. And we'll see how hard it is to collapse these midway. But basically, I want at least one of the Pythags done. And then we can start on the second one and mostly ignore all the top areas and side. And once we do that, then we can kind of collapse the head down and do the right side arm. But let's go ahead and start with the sword, just because that's easiest. And it's kind of like the legs. Right, so let's take a look on this side and begin folding the sword. So I can open up here and towards the head, basically our first thing that's going to get in the way is this diamond. So again, let me zoom out a little bit. You can start by folding the grid like this from the corner, basically up until that point. And yeah, maybe the easiest route, we'll just go down like this. I'm actually going to flip it over. Like this is just a little bit easier to manipulate and stay in frame. Okay, so just like that. And this is a pretty long flap. It goes all the way down to there. So I will continue pretty far over here and then start working towards the head. So we have that done. We just keep stretching just like this. Okay, so now we are at the point where we're going to start to go into the hilt. But yeah, let's see how far in the head we can go before it gets a little too weird. I think we're okay for now, because this next flap for the head is also fairly long. All right, so we're just following the pre-creases. Okay, that goes to here. It's not super long, I guess. It's only 4 units. And then it starts to go back up. Right, and then we have some 1-unit flaps. But I think in this scenario, yeah, we got one 1-unit flap, and then it'll go up to this spot here, I think. Or maybe we just let it go all the way. We'll ignore some of these pre-creases for now. All right, so and then once we're here, we can start going towards the handle, which is here. And this handle is 3 units long. Just like this. And then it starts to push back up into the hand, which is only 2 units long. Right, and then now it's going to keep going down, but we kind of have to balance out doing the head and the rest of it. So from here, right, we finish this, and then I am just going to collapse from this point and go down these pre-creases. Like that, and then we have our other mountain fold here. And that lets us keep going along this direction. And here is the other part of the hand. Right, so again, still just following the crease pattern. This is all pretty ordinary up to this point. And now we're kind of getting to the face area. And this is where we first encounter our Pythagorean stretch, which, let's see if we start collapsing it now or if we wait. Okay, so I think at this point, right, this isn't exactly how we're supposed to collapse the head, but to just keep it even right now, I'm just going to collapse it down like this. This is not fully on the pre-creases, but that's okay. And we'll fix it after we've done the Pythagorean stretch. So let me zoom in on that part a little bit more. So down over here. Right. And again, I think I still have it over here where we just use this one. Right. We had these extra creases in play. And so to collapse this, I'm going to open it up. And essentially there is like a line that's going to be made here, 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 like this. So this is what like the mountain valleys would look like. Obviously, these are all just mountains, but this kind of acts like a sink fold, right? So that is down in this bottom corner here. And so what we can do because of that is I can start on this mountain fold, and this is on the 1/2. So this one is mountain. And as long as I start that as mountain, right, it kind of makes sense that the next one will be valley, which is this guy over here, which means the other start to the 1/3 slope is also mountain, right? Like that. And then everything around it is valley. So this line that goes through, which is this one, is valley. And then so will this one, right? And then because we know that those are all valley, we can know that this one here is a mountain, which I think it's already pre-creased like that. So that will help us collapse this side of the Pythag like that. So let me show this way. Actually, you know what I'll do? I'll move this guy this way. Okay. Right. So now on the inside here, which is the top 1/2 slope over here, right? That's a valley. It's a mountain. And you should be able to start collapsing this whole point down for this section like that. And we almost have it done, actually. So now that we're down at the bottom here, we have a mountain fold that starts not on the slope, but on this 45-degree section, right? And then we just have to remember there's also a grid line here that we need to crease. So on the pattern here, right, this is like this way, like this. Just like that. So you can kind of see how that's happening here. So there is a crease that we can't fully see underneath that, but that is going to close around our grid line and this angle. So I can kind of squeeze it, closed. And then now we just have this last corner here, which kind of operates the same way, but for the most part, I can actually collapse like almost everything, at least the top half, just so that it's out of the way, like this. And then from here, the rest of it is pretty easy to collapse because this is back just on our regular pre-creases. So we're just collapsing down to here, up, down, and down here. So over here, this goes down for just like a normal collapse we have been doing. This one stretches out into a 2-unit flap over here, which we've already have mountain folded like this. Right, and we can close that all up. And that's our Pythag done. So yeah, not super weird or anything. It's just like as long as you can keep track of the creases and then know which one starts mountain, then all the rest of them will like make sense. All right, so that's our Pythag. You can see it if I stretch it out a little bit, how it looks like the crease pattern slightly, but pretty easy to collapse. Okay, now what I think we're gonna do is, because the head is kind of stable in this position, we're gonna work on the other side and then go upward. So I think what we're gonna have to do is start here and go down this way. That way we can eventually isolate the second Pythag and just leave the rest of the area uncollapsed, and we'll do that later. So let's see if that works. So I'm going to unfold this, and what I'm looking for is this line here, because we're going to collapse the left side of it, but not the right. So we're just looking for that mark, which is right here on my crease pattern. I'm going to start folding that. Okay, and then we can keep going forward while leaving all of this still collapsed. And this should be a little bit more regular of a collapse. The one caveat is that we do have some middle flaps starting to form here, and I think they're just going to form towards the outside for now, which will be okay. So it's starting to go back this way. Yeah, this is a 3-unit flap. So the tip of it is there, so we can just create a mountain fold on the edge here in order to keep collapsing back down towards the left. So that's back down this way. And we're going to do the same thing for this one as well. And then once again on the head side, we are first just collapsing through most of these creases, even though it's not lining up with all the ones that we have from the crease pattern. But again, we're going to work on that later. All right. So we are almost to where our Pythag is, I think. Or maybe we need to go a little bit further. Okay, so we got one flap. Okay, we need another flap, another 3-unit flap here. It's going to stretch out this way. Kind of same thing. We're going to end up mountain folding this area. And after this 3-unit flap, we're just about at the Pythag, which is down here, which means we just need to correct the side of the head that we want to work on, which will look like this. And we have some of the 1-unit flaps here. For now, we only have 2, I believe. And this bottom one will be the start of our Pythag right here. So I'm going to start collapsing just like I would normally with the 45-degree angles. And then we're going to use the Pythag. So just pinching this in. Now I'm going to open it up, and we can treat it just like the other Pythag. I'm going to open up some of the layers so I can start to see it, right? And then we can find which ones are mountain, which ones are valley, and go from there. So in this case, this edge one, which is the 1/2 slope, is valley. And that means the one adjacent to it, which is this one. It's mountain. I can press that to the side for now. And then we have another slope that's going this way, but then a mountain fold on the grid. So we can fully pinch this flap here by making that valley and following the grid just like this, right? Like that. Now our Pythag is continuing this way. We have the other slope here, which started as valley, but at the top will be mountain right over here. I can press that, and the grid is valley, and then we have another slope here that is valley. And let me scoot this down. So now we're dealing in this section, where this is going to be another point, which we can find after the 1/2 slope that's pointing down. And in this case, this 1/2 slope will be a mountain fold, I believe. So that's this one right here. And that lets us start to collapse it this way. Then we can just find our other slope here. This is 1/2, then our slope is like this. So we got the mountain and valley. Then we have the grid line. Then we have our other slope, which is mountain. Right there. And that one reaches to the corner. And all we really got to do is find that there's also this 45° that's starting at the bottom. So we can use that. And we should be able to pinch close this corner now. Like this. Now that one's closed. We can start to close up this whole thing. And then we just need to resolve the 45° creases for this 2-unit flap that we had before. That goes down to here and then up like this. And close up at the bottom over here. Right, and if some of your paper is starting to get stuck like that, you just got to push it into place. Look what I'm doing. Boom. And that should collapse nicely. Just like that. So now we have both Pythags collapsed. And the head and neck should feel pretty good. And then we have these other two flaps out to the side, which will be the shoulder pads. And then we have the other arm. So now the other arm, what's going on? We also have these flaps. These are going to be used for part of the scarf. We still have to collapse the rest of the head as well as the right side of the arm. So maybe we just get rid of, or we just finish off the arm. Because there's one more Pythag. And then we can do the middle flaps. Well, we kind of have to do that with the Pythag, but we'll do this whole section now, basically. Yeah, we'll start there. And then we'll worry about these middle flaps in a bit. I'm going to start opening up, and we see our Pythagorean stretch here. Yeah, we'll just start on this and then see how it goes with the middle flaps. It might be a little bit difficult, but the good thing is that because it's close to the corner, we can just stretch out and kind of be okay. So I might start with that actually, at least with this first one. So we have this first flap here. I'm going to open this too and just start some of these creases because they're connecting to the Pythagorean stretch. Doesn't have to be anything too crazy. Mostly just like up here, you see this is where it's going to connect. And then over to the side here, for now, I'm actually just going to valley fold through up to the hand here. I'm skipping the structure that's like right over here until we collapse more of our Pythagorean stretch. But it's a very similar to collapse as the other one. I'm actually going to rotate it this way so I can manipulate it and show you these creases more. But I am starting with the tip as mountain. That way I can kind of identify what happens next. Right, we also have the grid being a mountain. So that means the first slope here, which is a 1 over across 1 or across 2 down 1. We can do that as valley. And that's going to line up with another crease, which is mountain, which this one runs through the whole Pythagorean stretch. So it's kind of convenient that this one is mountain. That's going to help us basically finish the rest of it. Right. And then because of that, that means the next one, which is another slope, which is a down 3 across 1, will be valley, and we can pinch the corner just like this. Right. Now there is another way to collapse these, which is like you collapse around and then you sync fold, but I feel like that's just too extra for what we have to do. I think we can just find our pre-crease lines and collapse like that. But then from here, now I'm starting to get to this next grid line, which I can crease down like this. And then see that, okay, now there's this mountain fold, which is on part of the slope. And then there's this valley fold, which will line up like that to the next one. And then we have another slope here. This one is one of the ones where it's going down 3 and across 1. And this is a mountain. And so this should help us collapse all the way up to here. And then from here on out, we actually have these vertical or 45-degree lines, which will start to come into play. But we don't really have to deal with it yet. So we'll just hold off for now, like that. We can start working more on this side. So again, following the grid, we kind of already pinched this down. You can already see the next slope here. And then with our grid lines, this becoming a mountain, which means the crease next to it will be a valley. And then we have some more slopes coming across. These are across 2, down 1. That will be mountain. And the grid next to it, valley. And then last one, mountain here. You can kind of pinch this into place. And like after our Pythag on this end, you see over here, we have this 145-degree line. So we can actually put that in, and that's going to help us pinch that corner and let the whole Pythag collapse. So you pretty much have all the components staged. You just need to get it to pinch all together like this. And in this scenario, this grid line will come up to here, and then we have some 45-degree lines. So now we can do the 45-degree lines that go this way, which is up top here. Should be able to see them. Rotate this way. Right, it's going to be mountain fold at the edge like this. And as we start to collapse down, that one's a valley. Right, so now we pretty much have the whole top half of the Pythag done. We just need the bottom half, but this also starts to run into the middle flap here. So I can pinch all the way to about here and kind of work this way. But the bottom below here will be a little bit of a mess for now. I'm going to resolve the hand so we can just have this whole top corner done. The way we're collapsing the hand is actually just like, imagine if I deleted all this, it's just going to be like this, right? So you can see I started it here, and then I have another pre-crease like that, and then down. So we're just leaving these edge pleats still folded like that, and that should totally be fine. Right, and then I'm going to valley fold here, and it will allow this to fully close like this. So we got the hand sticking up there. We got this whole section coming out to the bottom, and we have our Pythag that we can close all the way up like this. So now the hard part's done. Next, we pretty much just have to do this and hit the second middle flap and collapse that middle flap. So we can just look from this right side corner of our Pythag, or where the Pythag ended, and just collapse along this. I think this will be the best path, right? I can see the pre-crease. This one's pretty standard. It's just a little stuck. Okay, so like this, right? And then it goes down pretty far, and then it'll go back up. And so we'll probably have to unfold this. This is our second 3-unit flap here. That's present. It's like this. Keeps collapsing. And you'll start to feel the paper fight each other. So where you see these flaps, right, the points, just leave them sticking up for now, and it'll be okay. All right. So now we've pretty much collapsed the edge that is this, and now we need to find out what to do with these middle flaps. Now these middle flaps are a lot easier to do than the ones we had in our axis because we can tuck them away. What I want you to do is look at this orientation. This is the head. These are the arms, right? And the easiest way to collapse it is if I grab them lightly and orientate, like basically pull them underneath like this. So it's like this motion to close. And you can see that now I can grab those together with one hand. And our middle flaps here look a lot more standard. What we would call this is like an axis. So we can just collapse the rest of it so tight that they just can actually lay down next to each other like this. And because they're only 3 units long, what we can do is we can just valley fold them into this layer, just kind of like a pocket here, like this. And then we can valley fold that all closed. So right now those flaps are hidden, they're kind of tucked away into that flap, which is okay for now. But it lets us recorrect the orientation of our arms and just really get those out of the way. Like that. So now they're over here. We have our arm here, and then we've got this thing, which will become the crossbow. And that's pretty much it. Now, we haven't done this section, which we pre-creased it like this, but I think actually it's going to just be like this, which will be okay. Like, this doesn't really change much based on how we pre-creased. We might just need to add these a little bit. Something like this, and then we need to fold these out. This is super easy. And then we need to do the rest of our hands, which we'll get to later. That'll probably be the very last thing we do is these fingers. Just like that. But we did most of the hard parts, right? So not a whole lot left to do. I think for now, before we do all those edge ones, because they're pretty easy and all relatively the same, is we're going to collapse the head correctly in this orientation. And I know I said there's like no level shifters in between, but there is kind of a level shifter for the head. It's just like not anything we need to pleat through beforehand. We can just do this all afterwards, as you had seen. So yeah, it's more of like a shaping fold than a collapse. Let's start on the head. I'm going to flip it over so we're facing the head here. We can see we have the flap for basically the start of our helmet, like this. But if you look on the crease pattern and open this up, we are missing quite a lot. So first we're going to correct that. And I'll show you how we're going to do that. Basically, let's start by opening up the middle a little bit so we can see some of the flaps on this left side. And the other thing I want to point out is actually, if I scroll here, we see this diamond like this. So we're going to first fold this diamond, and it's going to be on this one. So I want us to pull a little bit of paper out from this side. So you see this layer, just very gently unfold it like this. And I'm going to reach under my paper as well and poke at it like that. And the reason we're going to do this is because we can actually, you see how we had this mountain fold for over here? This is actually going to be a mountain fold all the way basically until here. So if you look at our crease pattern, you see how I have the mountain fold shown. That goes all the way to here. So let's unfold a little bit more and let that mountain fold go all the way across. I think it goes all the way up to this point right here where we have some more folds going on, and we'll just let that be. Now, in order to get it back correctly, right, we have these folds underneath, which are actually kind of already collapsed. So if I show you, right, we have our creases that go like this, and then this is kind of new. But we can kind of just push it back together and it's going to naturally form the structure that we want, right? So valley fold in here, mound fold over, and then where this new diamond structure is actually right over here. And it's a nifty little transition that doesn't have to be anything hard, but we're going to make sure these ones are valley fold. And that way, we can just push this layer down. That actually creases the bottom of that diamond. And lay it flat like this. And that's pretty much all we have to do for that transition. It kind of just tucks in underneath here. So we have it sticking out. Now, obviously, we have to resolve this section. This section is not too bad either. What we're going to do is where we had these 2 units of diagonal, this is actually going to fold over everything. So it's wider like this. But what has to happen underneath is there's one more set of valley folds. And this one we didn't quite collapse on, but now that we've done this transition, it can open up. So basically there's going to be one more set of folds like this, where this will pleat upwards as well. And I think for this to fully collapse, we actually need to do the other side first. So we'll leave it like half collapsed. Now on the far side over here, in order to collapse it, right, we also have some more stuff going around. With this diamond, it kind of operates the exact same way the other side does. But I think we're also going to need the other side opened up. So let's start opening up the other side, and it's going to make quite a bit of sense once we do it. So unfold a little bit, reach into this one to pull very gently that layer open, right? That way we can find where this diamond is pre-creased, which is right over here. And then just like on our crease pattern where it shows that mountain fold, which is right here, now running through all the way, we're going to unfold and make sure this mountain fold goes all the way up till this point where we start to see more of those creases like that, right? We have our big X over here. You know, now it's wider. But if you look on the inside, you can see how to put back these creases based on where our old pre-creases were. Which is right in there, right here. And then finally, with this diamond here, this is going to become mountain folds. So this one and this one. So turn those into mountain folds. And once those are mountain folds, you can just hold it in place and let the layers collapse back down like this. Right, like this. And just let it recollapse. My Pythag kind of stretched out a little bit too far, so it might be a little bit fidgety to get it back, but just like this. That way this can push in over top. Of our other pleat, and basically to get it collapsed, I'm just holding this tight, forming this pleat like this, valley folding up, and then there's another pleat that forms, so I'm holding on the inside, making this pleat recollapse like that. Now for this next one, we have the 2 unit folds just folding on top of each other through the layers like this. So it's just gonna mountain fold through the layers like that, kind of like a water bomb base. And then on the far side, now this is what we have to resolve, is it's currently on the creases. Let me show you. It's kind of in this area. This is what's going on. This diamond, this diamond. I'll face it this way. What you're going to want to do is I'm going to hold the tip of the head, which I'm holding it upside down right now. So it's like this, but just to keep it tight. And we're going to want to add this pleat here. So make sure these are mountain. This pleat. So right here, this is a mountain fold at the base of that diagonal. Just add that pleat, let it valley fold down. And that's going to let you push in the rest of these creases so that it can fit and stack inside the other one, which is in here. So I might have to push it like a little bit more just for now to get it configured. Actually, what we can do is let it close and push into the pleat we just made like this. This is just like a small layer order thing. And because those layers are out of the way, now we can just valley fold or mountain fold this top water bomb on this side. So I'll show you a little bit more on what's going on the other side. So you could just mush it, but to make it clean, right, we have these layers. I'm just going to push this layer into our pleat so it gets out of the way. And now it's out of the way, we can just finish that collapse, this mountain fold here. For the point, just make sure the point is actually pointy. There is a lot of layers going on, so just try to make sure it's on those pre-creases so it's pointy, relatively clean. Doesn't have to be anything too crazy. Like that. And that is the collapse for the head, which now we have all these flaps to use for shaping our helmet, which we'll get to in the next tutorial, because the helmet shaping is a little unique. But for the most part, we have everything done here for the head. So I'm just going to keep all these flaps folded up for now so they're out of the way. You can kind of see what we have going on. You have the sword arm with the hand, right? And for now, like, if you folded any of my models, you'll know that the sword will turn like this, right? It's super standard. I do this so much. That's the sword arm. Then we have the wrist-mounted crossbow arm on this, which is a lot crazier because it also has the scarf. This is going to be the scarf. And then this is the shoulder pad, like that. Then we have our hand, and then this flap is the mounted crossbow. And we got some flaps going on over here. Yeah, so we're doing pretty good. Now, because we've done the head, we can start to get some of these other middle flaps done. So we can like finish off the actual crossbow. We can do the fingers and all sorts of stuff like that. And before we do that fully, I think there is one more thing we need to do. Or no, I think we're good. Yeah, we'll just start folding out these shoulders and the pleats for that. Yeah. Before we do the remainder of the collapse, one thing I just want to point out is the difference in size between using an 80 centimeter and a 60 centimeter paper, right? Like this Wylder is pretty tall actually, but in comparison, this one seems really small. Like this is our legs compared to these legs. Here's our arms in comparison. Like it's not that much smaller, but it kind of is, right? It's like quite a huge difference. So I do recommend you use as big of paper as possible, but if you're using 60 centimeters, we'll still be able to shape it. It'll just look like a miniature version. So yeah, but let's get to those rest of the shoulder details and flaps like that. All right, so let's go ahead and start on this area because we might have to adjust some of the pre-creases, but it won't be too hard. So for once, we're starting on the right side, right? Now, if we unfold this a little bit, let's check this out. You can actually just open up like a few layers here. We don't have to do everything yet. And we can see that we do have pre-creases going from the tip here going down to, and it goes a little bit past 2, but I think we're just going to convert all these to 2-unit flaps. It's going to be a little bit easier to shape. We don't need all this craziness. So let's go ahead and stretch this out a little bit more. And as you can see, yeah, I'm missing the pre-crease here because we did something a little bit differently. But all I really got to do is, instead of counting all that, I just count down 1, 2, and then we're going to go back up 1, 2. So down 2, up 2. And I'm just going to pinch this in. We're going to do both sides. Just like this. Like that. So we got both sides in. And now we can collapse that. It's pretty easy, I would say. So I can actually put some of the layers back, just so that we have this extra 2-unit flap that we can fold like this, like that. And that way we can actually, you know, systematically collapse these. So I can take my Pythag here, the tip, and push it into this pocket once it's done. So now I have those creases collapsed, and I can just put this into that pocket, close it up, right? And then now we can keep going forward. So basically we just rinse and repeat. So I'm going to open this up again just for another set of 2. But I believe this will actually lock us into the next, the ones we actually have pre-creased. So for this set, I might have the pre-crease down here, like this. So 2 down, and then 2 back up. And yeah, that'll be, then we have all the pre-creases left. So just like this. And since we have those pre-creases, again, you can either do one at a time, or if you're comfortable, you can just collapse all of them at once towards the edge. Since we already did one, it'll be, you know, fairly manageable to just collapse the rest of them. So let's try that out. So we have those pre-creases done. I'm going to open up another set like this. And it looks like in here, we might have to reverse the grid lines just for these small ones, but you can pretty easily be following our pre-creases now that they're already here. So let's kind of get them folded like this. Right, and that way we can group them by the top of the flap, which makes it easy and keeps it nice to stay collapsed like this. Right, okay, and I think we only have one more to the edge, and then we can call it a day on this side and do the other side. So yeah, we already have the pre-creases here. So we just collapse onto edge this time. 2-unit flap. At this point, this should be, one of the easier things we're doing in this tutorial. So I'm sure all of you following along will be okay with this step. All right, okay, so now we have the edge one. Let's make sure the corner here is sharp, like this. All right, corner's good. Fold it up like this. That's good. And then the last one over here got a little bit crazy, but we can put it back. That way, we can now valley fold all of these together as one, where the Pythag is. Boom. There we go. Now it's a big clump, and we've got a bunch of points, which we can later on shape into our shoulder armor. And now we basically do the same thing on the other side. Now, this side should have the pre-creases, so we don't have to add any pre-creases, and there's just less of the points. So I think I can just go ahead and, unwrap this whole area and just take a look, right? So, I'm just getting a little confident here. Just set the grid the right direction by creasing through like this, just to be kind of fast. And then from there on, we can collapse these points. So, right, flipping it to the other side now. You can start at where the Pythag is, get that points on the pre-crease, just like this. And then start collapsing these 2-unit flaps, just like the other side. Pretty straightforward. All right, here's the next one. Here's the one after here, and I can kind of just rely on the tips, which are kind of like the water bomb bases, to kind of grab all the points together, because then the grid is pretty much helping us finish off the collapse. Right, just like this. And then one more towards the edge right here. Okay, now we can collapse them a little bit nicer so they're on all the pre-creases and relatively precise. Like that. And this one, the paper got a little stuck, but it's good. And yeah. And I think, while we're mostly through the collapse, I will say that the this paper is working pretty good. This is the Kakura paper from Paper Tree. So there should be a link for this in the description. I don't know if this is the paper you started with, but it's working pretty well, I will say. Even though this paper is smaller, like I showed, I think the shaping's going to be totally fine, and it's handling a lot of this rough folding that I'm doing to collapse these. So if you're interested in this paper, shout out Paper Tree for sending me this paper. Little plug, mid-tutorial. But hey, this paper is working pretty well. It's holding up nice and strong. And it still looks great too. So that was the other shoulder. And I know the shoulder pads are like under the arms, but that's because when we shape, little sneak preview, they're going to wrap over the arms and provide like a nice over the shoulder type structure where it's a little bit more seamless to where we're looking at from the front. I think it looks nice, even though oftentimes structures of shoulders come from above. You'll see how it works later, and it kind of involves how we shape the neck as well. Yeah, so that's done. Now we do have more of these in other areas. So for example, we can, let's look back at this crease pattern. We've got this one, and we got the hands, and then we got the fingers. So let's do this one first because this is fast, and then we'll continue with the fingers later. All right, so let's go ahead and do the crossbow really quick. Basically, you know, same process as what we just did, just a little bit on a different area, and we only have one 2-unit flap and then a 1-unit flap at the end. So I can unwrap right here, right? And then we see our pre-creasing for the 2-unit flap, like this. So that's the 2-unit flap. And then we can do the 1-unit flap like so. All right, just like this. And then we can valley fold it back up. So that's going to be pretty simple. We're going to save this hand for last. But I think we can go ahead and work on this hand. All right, so for this hand, we didn't pre-crease much, and that is because we can basically open it this way and squash fold the corner like this. And this becomes the pre-creasing we need for the fingers. And again, if you fold it like one of my old samurais, I do this finger technique quite a lot. So what we can do from here, just open it for all these fingers. However, the first one, let me show the crease pattern over here. The first one will be a 2-unit flap, and then it's just a bunch of 1-unit flaps going forward. So we can start with the 2-unit flap here, which this one we pre-creased, I think. And then after that, we can go ahead and do all the 1-unit flaps. So here's our 2-unit flap. Right, and then now for the 1-unit flaps, got a whole bunch. And if we tilt it this way, since it's just like a 1-unit sync fold, essentially, it's pretty easy to just like stack them as you go like this. So like once you fold one, you can just push it and valley fold it into the rest of the group. So you don't have to do it like all at once, but you totally could if you wanted to, because it's not really that different. But if you want to just take your time, make sure they're pointy, you can do that too. And we got 2 more. So there's 1. All right, let's do 1 more. Okay, like this. Like that. And that's our last finger. All right, and because we have that 2-unit flap, we're actually going to like make sure we don't lose this, because this is gonna be the thumb. So I'm just going to like valley fold it outwards like this. And we're not really shaping it yet, but like what we could do is after it's reverse folded like this, we can just thin it a little bit with like a few more reverse folds. Yeah, we're not doing the whole hand yet, but this will just get it out of the way. So when we do the rest of the fingers, we don't forget to move that first. Right. And then we can just swivel this here. And then we can worry about all the rest later. And actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This one might not even be thumb. We might use this for different detail. Okay, so maybe yeah, forget about that. We're just going to let's unfold that. Let's just keep it over here for now. This one might turn into the handguard. I can't remember which one's which, but once we get to the shaping tutorial, we'll do that. But we'll at least tilt our sword this way so we can work on it later. All right, so that's the fingers on the left side. Now the rest of the claps, all we really have to do is the other hand over here. And if you've seen my assassin tutorial, I kind of show how to do the hands there. These are pretty good hands. But they have a little bit of a process to go through. So we'll do that for just the last thing of this tutorial. And then I think that'll be like a good length. And we'll do all the other transitions for shaping in a dry shaping video, like widening out the legs and stuff like that. All right, but for now, let's go ahead and try these fingers. Let's get started with like the pre-creasing, which we don't have to do much. So similar to the other hand, the pre-creasing is just squash folding when opening up these layers. So we've got 2 of them here between these flaps. Just do a quick squash fold. And for the very top corner, we actually just do a reverse fold. So like we don't even have to bother with really pre-creasing this right over here, right? This is a reverse fold, or you could squash fold it too. Whatever you prefer. All right, so something like this. This would be squash folding it. And then just make sure the corner is relatively sharp. Like that. Okay. All right, so that is for those. And then now that we've pre-creased, we're going to open and unwrap this layer. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with just folding these lines here. So not towards the edge, but just the mountain folds touching our existing points here, like this. And here. So they will form something like this. And then from here, right, now we have the rest of our pre-creasing. So in this case, this part either reverse folds, or you can think of it as a petal fold. Up like this. Right. And then once you have one, flip it around, do the other. Right. And that is the structure collapsed. Now we're not done with the fingers because as you can see, they aren't like, lined up yet. So while they're like this, we have 2 flaps, like one's here, that are faced on the outside. And you're going to fold them in half. This is like a pre-crease, like this, right? And then you're going to open sync them. So like this. Now we're going to open sync. Pretty standard stuff. Now, depending on your paper, if you're using the same size as me, the sink is starting to get small. It's not too small yet, but might be starting to get a little small. Okay, there's one. Now we need the other over here. Like that. All right, so now we have those sink folds complete. Now what we need to do is I'm going to valley fold this tip up so that we see the edge here, right? Same thing with the other side. And we need to do some thinning on these layers. So some of these will be sink folds. Some of them will just be like squash folds, or I think there'll be 2 sink folds and 2 squash folds. So this one is on the edge, is a gonna be a sink fold. This next one I'm just going to squash fold. Not even a need to pre-crease it, because yeah, we can just squash fold like this. Close it back up. The rest I'm going to pre-crease just to see if it's a sink fold or a squash fold. And I guess it was 1 squash fold and 2 sink folds. So that's going to be a sink fold. And then I believe this will also be a sink fold. Yep. So like that. So 2 more open sink folds here. Like this. It's not too difficult. The only thing is the fingers on the other side might try to interrupt this process. So just make sure that, like over here, the finger like tucked itself underneath. So just make sure you fix that so you don't trap paper unnecessarily. But these don't have to be perfect, so don't worry too much about it. In fact, when the fingers are too pointy, they don't look very good. They look too much like claws, not like fingers. So, you don't have to worry about them actually being super tight or pointy. Okay, so now here we have this one, and I'm pretty much just reversing all the creases to mountain and then pushing it in. That's just the fastest I have found myself doing this. Right, like that. And we got one more. And the center one can be the most fidgety. I normally just like open it gently like this and just kind of either go underneath or just see if the paper will let me sink fold it for the most part. In this case, it's not, so I'm going to go underneath with one of my fingers, pinch mountain. This one, just pinch to reverse the crease, and sink fold like that. All right, so we have the fingers thinned now. Now we can group the fingers all together because we still have the 2 flaps sticking out down here, which is kind of strange. So what we're going to do now is I am going to take one of these fingers, fold it down like this, and then I am going to valley fold this edge upwards. And to do that, it's going to like open up where we had this sink fold, right, like this. All right, so it's going to open up like that. So now it looks like it was squash folded. Then while it's like that, I can take this bottom corner. This bottom corner is going to like basically rotate 90 degrees like this in order for the rest of the fingers to close. And when I'm closing these fingers, there's another corner up here, which I'm also going to valley fold upwards and upwards and behind a separate finger like this. You'll see that it's starting to shift, to be 90 degrees. And then on the back side, I need to do that as well, is open up and valley fold this behind. And you'll see from doing that, both of these flaps are now, shifted by 90 degrees. So they're pointed up. However, with the thin one, you can just valley fold it down and valley fold it across, and that makes the other finger. However, I don't like when the finger gets too thin, so I actually like to put it in between one of the fingers. It's like this. Let that close. So now it's in between the fingers. It's not the most edged one. And with the remaining flap up top here, and this is like the thicker of the flaps, not the corner flap, I like to outside reverse it like this to kind of get it out of the way of the other fingers. And so it's still sticking up like this. So I'm going to valley fold in half like that. I know it's getting a little tiny. But after that valley fold, then I am going to squash fold it. That will kind of turn it into like the top arm or top of the hand armor. And it will let this section fold a little bit more flat like this. Right, and then that means this can valley fold over the hand. So now what we're left with is 5 fingers that are all facing the same direction, so it's kind of easy to shape them. And if there's any finger that's like in particularly a little too short, it probably just means you need to shift it a little higher, or it was a little imprecise when you folded it. So I'm going to correct this one. Now it's all pretty good, and it will be ready for us to shape. Now these fingers are getting pretty small, right? So we'll handle that with the shaping tutorial, but at least they're all there. Alrighty, so I think that will wrap up our collapse tutorial. I kind of had y'all do a lot, so that should be good for now. If your base looks like this, I know it doesn't look like much yet, but it will soon turn into the Wylder. I can pull up the Wylder here just so we can take a final look. It's pretty neat, right? You can see we have what's going to be the helmet, which is a pretty 360-degree helmet. We've got the scarf, which is these flaps, and actually this top flap here, top 2-unit flap, this one also is part of the scarf, which is kind of funny. We got the hand with the sword, we got hand with the mounted wrist crossbow, which, right, you see how it like sits on top this direction. And then we got a bunch of details for the torso. In the back here, this becomes the waistcoat in the back. And you see that it's actually pretty wide, so it fully closes. I'm going to kind of show how to do that. It might not be exactly the same as this, because I think it's a little bit extra to do this, and I was just trying to make it look like in the game, but we can make it a little bit better by not doing that. But we'll see how it turns out. And then same thing with the legs. We will we have room to widen them, and we'll do some nice stuff to make it look good. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the collapse, and we'll get to the shaping in the next tutorial. Yeah, once again, shout out to Paper Tree for this Kakura paper. It's handling very nicely so far, and I'm excited to shape it. I think it'll work really well for shaping. And yeah, good job collapsing. Stay tuned for the dry shaping tutorial and then the wet shaping tutorial. I'm pretty sure I'm going to split up both just so I can release the tutorials a little faster. But yeah, hope you enjoy. This is taking quite a lot of work, so let me know if you're folding this in the comments. And I'll see you in the next video.
All this origami, all this origami, all this origami got me going kamikaze now.